What goes up must come down. Welcome to the Brand Breakdown. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Courtney.
And this is where we're going to track the rise and fall of big brands, from companies to celebs to pop culture phenoms and everything in between. Let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome back. It's been a minute. Happy summer. So Courtney and I are back in the studio today, and today we are going to be talking about everybody's favorite summer blockbuster, Bridgerton Season 3. Good morning, Courtney. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to talk about this today because we keep starting conversations about it, and then I keep interrupting, being like, no, save it for the episode because I have some thoughts.
Oh yeah, so do I. I'm so excited about this. So first of all, I want to talk about the fact that you and I both read all of the novels. Mm-hmm. So before the show even came out, or it was a thing or whatever, I had read all of the novels, especially the ones that they've covered in season 1, 2, and 3. But then, later did Francesca and Eloise and who's the cute little madcap one?
Hyacinth.
Hyacinth, yeah. I wanted to say Henrietta. I'm like, no, that's not right. There was a Henrietta, though, in something that was sort of English, but I don't remember what it is. Anywho, so we've read all the novels, and now we've seen all the shows, and I want to talk about, the key differences and what we liked and what we didn't like and what people are saying, and then kind of give our opinion, which, as we know, is worth about a grain of salt. So all good. So let's start with season 1, Bridgerton. Just a really quick recap of what happened there. So today we're going to be talking about Simon and Daphne's characters, played by Renee Jean Page and Phoebe Dynevor. First of all, I loved the casting of Simon because in the novels, it's the Regency period. It runs from 1811 to 1820, something like that. Traditionally, there were not people of color that much in society. There definitely were, but not that much. But in Shondaland, she definitely wanted to represent people of all ethnicities and colors and sexual orientation, and I applaud that. I think that's fabulous. So the casting of Simon was fantastic. And let me tell you, that guy was so good looking, he hurt your eyeballs.
Literally. Yeah.
Oh my God. So beautiful. Just such a beautifully put together person. Holy cow. Features of his face were amazing. And then Daphne, obviously, Diamond of the First Water. And she was Queen Charlotte's diamond, which, at some point we talk about Charlotte's show too, the Bridgerton story, because I love her. She's probably in my top 2 favorite characters in the show because she's so fabulous. But yeah, she's so great. But anyway, so in season 1, Phoebe and Daphne and Simon do this little dance around each other. And it's exactly, in my opinion, it was so similar to the way it was in the books that I just loved that season. I just loved it. It was so true. And I loved all the casting of the characters. I loved the mama. It was just amazing. What did you think?
I think that I agree. Every single character was cast so well. And okay, so there's 8 Bridgerton kids, and I think they did such a good job of casting a group of people that actually look like they are related. It's kind of, I don't know, that feels like it would be such a hard thing to do. And I think they really nailed it. Although I do think that the casting of Anthony and Benedict, I think Benedict looks older than the guy who's supposed to play his older brother. So that kind of throws me a little bit. And then I think Colin looks way younger than they do.
Yeah.
And so I don't think they're supposed to be quite that large of an age gap, but whatever, regardless. But I think they did such a good job with casting, and I think that forever and for all time, the best casting ever will be Queen Charlotte, and then in the spin-off series, the girl who plays her when she's younger. That casting is so insane. It's it's just ridiculous. So
yeah,
good job to whoever's their casting director.
Yeah, no, that was fabulous. You're absolutely right about Benedict and Anthony, because I just felt like Benedict initially, now I don't feel this way so much, but initially had much more gravitas than Anthony did. I understand the stuff about the bee stings and all of that, and he kind of gave him that sort of edge. And the character that plays him, the guy that plays him, his face is more lined than Benedict's is, so maybe
Mhm.
that's what they
Mhm.
figured gave him the age. But I did feel like initially Benedict just, maybe it's just because he's so much bigger, because he's a much bigger
Yeah,
guy.
yeah, like, maybe their stature makes it appear that one is the older than the other.
Yeah, for sure. Because like my son, is 6 foot. Oh my, he might be 6'4" now, but he was 6'3" about a month ago, and he's only
It's crazy.
14. I know, it's so crazy. He's so big. His hands are like dinner plates. So whenever we go out anywhere, people just assume that he's 17 or 18 because
Mhm.
he is so tall and broad. So I think that's kind of what happened with Benedict. And then Colin in the first season, he looked like he was 14. Like he was
Yeah.
definitely not mature. But anyway, so keep going.
So, yeah, so I think that, season 1, casting was phenomenal, story was great, and season 1 really set the expectation for what I thought the entire series was gonna be, and which is what follows the book series very closely, and, full disclosure, I did not read the full book series until after season 2. I had read one of the books, like, years ago. Actually, no, I read one of the companion books. There's, like, a Bridgerton prequel book that I had read, like, years ago, and then in between season 2 and 3, I read the entire book series in a week. um,
Oh my
Thank you,
god.
Amazon. Thank you, Amazon Kindle Unlimited,
Right.
for
Yeah, I
giving me the
do.
first
I
one,
do
and then
love
just
some. Yeah,
yeah.
totally,
But
totally backing
so
you into $100 more of the others.
yeah, I was like, well, I can't stop now. And good shout out to Julia Quinn for writing an amazing series that was impossible to put down, literally, and I was so sad when it was over. Um,
I know.
but so season 1, like, we focus on Daphne and Simon. And obviously there's other characters. We see the Bridgerton family interact. We get a little bit of the backstory about, like, how Anthony became the Viscount at such a young age, all of that stuff. But the focus of season 1 is, pretty firmly on Simon and Daphne. Season
Hmm.
2, we've got the same thing. The season's focus is primarily Kate and Anthony. We do have, again, a little bit of backstories being developed, side characters being developed. We've got some characters who I don't believe are in the books at all. The Mondriches, who are kind of being developed, and we're seeing, this little bit of an offshoot. Um, but the primary focus of 8 episodes is the couple, and the story pretty much stays, some tweaks here and there, but they stay pretty true to the books. Um, and then season 3 just took, like, the biggest departure from all of that. And it's still
I
good, and
agree.
it's still Bridgerton, and it's still pretty. Like, Bridgerton is just like cotton candy for your eyes and for your brain, how pretty it is. Like,
Oh
pastels and
yeah.
florals and the lavender and the wisteria, and, like, it's just so pretty to look at. So I'm not saying I'm not happy with it, because I still am obsessed. But they took a big departure from where we had been and the books.
Yeah, I agree. And interestingly, the Montrage's story arc, from the boxer who owns a tavern to now
Mhm.
their son is, I guess, a baron.
Yeah.
So they get an estate and servants and all that kind of stuff. Interestingly, in society during the Regency times, he would not have been accepted the way that they accept him in Bridgerton. And solely for the reason that he was a tradesman.
Mhm.
Like they just did not, there just was very, very, very little interaction or social equality from between tradesmen and the aristocracy. It just, it's believable in the story arc, in the season, and the television show. But the reality is, everything you've read about the Regency period, it would be very unlikely that they would be elevated to stature in that way and then be easily accepted into society. I just don't think it would happen. But
Right. Well,
that's
especially
just,
because the Mondriches, I don't know his name because they always just call him Mondrich, but, like, he was the proprietor of the members club that they went to. So not only was he, a tradesman, they had, like, a specific interaction with him, specifically being someone who waited on them, like.
Right, exactly. It would be very unlikely for him to be elevated in that way and then be accepted as a peer of the realm. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
interestingly, the club that they all go to in the series and in the book, I don't think they went to White's in the book either, did they? But
No,
White's would
they
have been the
didn't.
club. Yeah, but White's would have been the club that they went to, during the Regency period. But they didn't obviously in the series. But at any rate, that's neither here nor there. But season one, you're right, stays really true to the book. Daphne and Simon are fantastically lusty, you know, love hate relationship. I love the way that it all turns out. Now, there was a ton of controversy when they had relations, and she sort of helped him have relations in a way that he was not able to prevent an heir, if you know what I'm saying. But people online say, like, if she really did that, if that happened, that's assault
Mhm.
because she forced him to do something against his will.
Yep.
Well, so I don't disagree with that, right? In today's society, that would 100% be assault, male or female. Um,
Right. No means no. He said stop,
no,
you stop.
right. Right. But if it was assault and he felt violated, I just don't know that there would be as easily, this would have been as easily forgiven as it is in the books and in this show. You know what I mean? I think that he would have carried a lot more anger and shame and etc. than is shown in the books or the series. Because if you're
Well,
truly
I
assaulted, it's difficult.
that's the thing. I think it depends on like what he saw it as. And he saw it as a like at no point in the books or in the show does he ever say like he was assaulted and whatever, but he says that he feels like she betrayed his trust kind of. Like it wasn't so much about that what she did he felt like violated because of what she did. It was more that he like she knew he couldn't have kids. Why not take him at his word? Like, I think that was the thing that he seemed most upset with. He wasn't like, oh, I was assaulted, like, oh, I was raped. It was, like, oh, I, like, why are you not trusting me? Like, we're supposed to love each other. Why don't you trust me? So I think
Yeah,
it
well,
really
they
depends
had.
on like his perspective there.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I also think that she didn't fully trust what he said from the very beginning, so I think that was a big part of it.
Well, I
And
think it
there,
was part of it. Like, it really showed how like sheltered women were during that time period because if you remember she had no idea like what the process of like making a baby even was, and then when she finally, who was it, her like lady's maid or something told her how babies are made, she got the talk, and she was like, wait a second, that's not what we're doing, that's not how this is going every
right,
time. And so that's when she
right,
kind of put two and two together. But I think so she also felt kind of betrayed by him because she was like, she's like, you keep saying you can't, but I think it's actually you won't. And so you're lying to me. And they both just felt like
right.
everybody lied to each other.
Well, and interestingly too, they don't talk about this, but most ladies who had a come out or a debut usually did it around 17, 18, 19,
Hmm.
in that time frame. And so if that's true to the character, she was really young and didn't know a whole lot. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and she wasn't the lady who was like out in the stables every day riding the horses and saw how that worked. So she really wouldn't have had any idea of the making of a baby. I mean, when I I really up until I was 14, I believed that if a man was, and I had the talk and I read the books, but even at 14 I thought if a man was just near you and did something that you could magically get pregnant. Like I feel like I truly did. I just didn't put those things together until later. So my 14-year-old would have probably been her 17-year-old. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Because
Right.
they're all really a lot younger than they um, I think, show them in the show, because traditionally you're really young when you make your debut, go to
Right.
London for your season or whatever. So one of the things I want to point out is that Daphne is considered a diamond of the first water by the Queen, which means she is the pinnacle of perfection in society. So she's gorgeous. She has great manners. She comes from a wonderful family. She is not too smart, but she's very gracious. Because, if you had brains, you were a blue stocking. So anyway, loved season 1, thought it was fabulous, loved every single thing about it, and was devastated when they did not come back really for season 2. I mean, Daphne did a little bit, but Simon did not. So let's
Hmm.
move on to season 2. This was my definitely runs second for me in terms of how I love the seasons. No, actually third. It might be a tie. All right, season 2. Let's go.
So season 2, we've got it's Kate and Anthony's story. Anthony is the Viscount, so he is the eldest brother. I'm sure everybody knows by now, but the Bridgerton children are named in alphabetical order. So Daphne is actually, even though her book was first and her season was first, she's the fourth, but she's the oldest girl. But so Antony is the Viscount, and it's time for him to find a wife. He's been single for too long. He's approaching, I don't know, something probably ancient, like 26 or something back in
Right.
Regency times.
He's like
And
100.
yeah. And so they're like, hurry up, sir. Time for you to get a wife. And so Antony goes into it with he's like, I'm just going to be practical. I've got a list of features I want for a woman to have, or accomplishments or personality traits. And I'm just going to, when I meet a girl, I'm just going to compare her to the list. And if she matches all the qualities, cool, I'll marry her. And I don't even care if I like her that much, as long as she checks the boxes. So we've got Edwina Sharma, who is the younger sister of the two Sharma sisters. And she is the diamond that season. And so, Antony meets her. She's smart. She's kind. She's accomplished in that she can, like, kind of play an instrument a little bit, which was a thing back then. Everyone should kind of know how to play an instrument. She's fun to talk to. She's pretty. So whatever. She checks all of Antony's boxes. He's like, cool, I'm going to marry this one. But Kate, the older protective sister, is way more like fiery and she kind of pushes back against Antony and gives him an attitude and likes to argue with him. And she's way more competitive, and they have their little sparks. And so then we've got like a little bit of a love triangle.
Their sparks are like a fire.
Yeah. Yeah, like whole fireworks, not just a little tinder. But so then their season 2, also heavily features the relationship between the two main characters. Obviously, we've got 3 people here because there's, again, a little bit of like the love triangle, but the primary focus of the season is Kate, Antony, Edwina, and then, we see Daphne pops in a little bit. We see Colin kind of developing a little bit. We see some Benedict stuff with his art. We always see Eloise on her hunt for Lady Whistledown, who we somehow have been talking about Bridgerton for like
and haven't mentioned it yet.
20 minutes and haven't even mentioned it.
I just realized that. I'm like, oh my God, where is Penelope with Lady Whistledown? Like, I think we have to we have to talk about Lady Whistledown. We might have to go back to the beginning and talk about Lady Whistledown.
Yeah, so we've somehow 21 minutes in, we just mentioned her for the first time. But yeah, so we see all of these other characters, but the primary focus of the season is on the main love story of the season, which is exactly how it is in the books. The main focus of every book is almost standalone, in that you could pick up any one of the series and be reading a love story between two people and kind of get the inkling of like, oh, there's other people involved in this world, but the story stands on its own. So season 2 followed that same formula.
Agreed. And also, one of the beautiful things about season 2 is, again, Shonda's casting with Edwina and Kate of Indian descent, which at that time, India was a colony of Great Britain, which there's a lot of controversy there. And we won't get into that, but that was the case at the time. And the woman who plays Kate absolutely gorgeous. Her jawline's ridiculous, and she's just
Mhm.
stunningly beautiful, in my opinion, more beautiful than Edwina. So I thought that was interesting. But she is again very fiery and feisty, and definitely a blue stocking. So she's definitely very smart, and I love her character, and I love how she challenges Anthony, and all that is super fabulous. Meanwhile, back at Lady Whistledown's house, um, so let's talk about Lady Whistledown for just a minute, because I think that A, the fact that it's Penelope that's Lady Whistledown, and B, that Julie Andrews does the voiceover, which is so perfect. It made me cry the first time I ever heard her voice as Lady Whistledown. I was like, oh my God, the casting could not be more perfect, because her voice is so fantastic and recognizable and so posh, which, all this is very posh.
Mhm.
But let's talk about her for just a second, because there's an arc through all of the books of Lady Whistledown. We find out that Penelope Featherington and Eloise, who live across the street from one another, are best friends. And Penelope gets rejected again and again and again and again in season one, and honestly, season two, and part of season three. Um, and I think she takes that rejection not only from her family, but also from society. And she begins to pin this, town crier, essentially. In Palm Beach, they call it the shiny sheet. So the paper, the Lady Whistledown papers, that talks about all of the gossip for the season. And she starts every one of her letters with "Dear Gentle Reader," which is fabulous and makes me super happy. What did you think about the Lady Whistledown arc, and how she's very cruel in the first season, and then becomes less cruel over the seasons, and then by season three she's darn right nice.
Yeah. So I think that the interesting thing about Penelope as Lady Whistledown is that in the first season, we didn't know who. Did we? Wait, now I'm trying to remember. Did we know who Lady Whistledown was, or were we just watching? Not until the very
I
end.
think, yeah, but
Um,
obviously,
but we were
I
watching.
knew.
Yeah, yeah. Like if you read the books, you knew. Um, and like there were hints throughout the season, but we didn't know for sure because we're watching Penelope and Eloise, or actually we're watching Eloise trying to find who Lady Whistledown is. And Penelope at first is kind of going along with it. Then she's kind of trying to tell Eloise to like back off, let it go. This is ridiculous. You're gonna get yourself in trouble. You're gonna get yourself hurt. And you see Lady Whistledown in the first season become a little bit like you said, like she was kind of mean. She was a little bit trying to throw people off the scent. So she's being the exact opposite of Penelope. Penelope is so sweet. She's this introvert wallflower. She's described as constantly throughout the books, and I believe she describes herself as a wallflower. Um, yep, like just this like the meekest, quietest, most unassuming person who happens to be a member of the Featherington family, who is just this like loud, boisterous group of people. The mother always dresses them in bright, citrusy colors, whereas the Bridgertons are always dressed in like pale pastels and blues. Bridgerton blue, you can look up that color. It's lovely. But so Penelope is kind of this, she always feels like the odd man out in her own family. She feels like the odd man out in society. And she takes to the pen to kind of like make herself feel heard. And she's not ever, I don't think, trying to be vindictive, but she's just trying to comment on what she's seeing and tell people her opinion of it in a way that is entertaining. And it makes her feel like she's able to kind of be a part of everything. Um, and like you said, she starts off as it's kind of a little bit mean. Not mean. I don't know. I never took it as like mean for the sake of being mean, because she never, and I think Penelope's character says this at some point, like she never said anything that wasn't true. Everything she was saying, she was just calling it like she saw it, and she was saying, "Hey, did you know that this person did this?" Now, is it appropriate for anybody to be airing someone's secrets and calling people out? I don't know, especially for entertainment value, probably not. But she wasn't lying, which is a big point that she makes in season 3. She was never lying about anything. If people didn't like what they saw written about them, that was a reflection on themselves. Like, if you don't like to see it, don't behave that
She
way.
was what they would call in the earlier books, which no one would use this term now. She was arch, like so. She was like playful and teasing, but deliberately like raising an
Hmm.
eyebrow about things. But you're right; they were all true, but they did out a lot of people. Like everything she
Right.
said was true until she was really cruel to the little girl that was staying with them. Oh my gosh, what was her name? And was she? I'm conflating season 1 and season 2. Did she come in season 1 or season 2? The girl that was pregnant that Colin was courting a little
I
bit.
think she was. I think that was
Was that season
season
2?
1. I don't
I
know.
can't remember. But anyway, so she was mean, like our arch, or, like deliberately evocative, let's say that. But she also said some kind of not nice things about Eloise. She definitely said some horrible things about her own family. And she outed people
Hmm.
left and right, like people who were having an affairs, people who were having financial problems, people who were having, you know, titillations behind closed doors, all that. She outed everybody, which, while true,
Hmm.
but she also talked about the queen, never disparagingly, but in like ways that, it intrigued the queen. The queen wanted to know who she was. The queen started the hunt for her. She questioned the queen's diamond of the
Hmm.
first water and, that type of stuff. So it made her, quite compelling to the queen. I think the queen felt like she had a real competition there. I just loved the character of Lady Whistledown, from the fact that it was Penelope to the reading of it by Julie Andrews. And the writing was fantastic. So I love that.
Hmm.
Season 2 is when Eloise finds out that Penelope is Lady Whistledown, right? Like
Yeah. Yep.
halfway
Season
through.
2, Eloise finds out. Yes. And she is not happy about it because Lady Whistledown had taken some swipes at the Bridgerton family, which Penelope says was because she was trying to protect them, trying to like make them, when she goes after Marina, who
Marina,
is the girl you were
yes,
talking about,
yeah,
Marina Thompson. She goes after Marina and Colin's relationship. She outs Marina as being pregnant. Um, and she says, like, she wasn't doing it to be mean or cruel or hurt anybody. She was trying to protect Colin from making a mistake because Colin was being lied to. And Marina was trying to, like, trick him into marrying her before she started showing so that then her baby could be born into, respectable society or whatever. So Penelope's like, I was trying to protect you. I was trying to do your family a favor. And, like, maybe I didn't do it the right way, but the the goal was the right, like, my heart was in the right place, even if you feel betrayed by it. And that's kind of a recurring thing with Lady Whistledown, is she's trying to do the right thing by bringing something to light. If she's writing about people having affairs, it's because she's trying to help the person who's being
betrayed,
betrayed or whatever. But it's like, are you doing that in the right way? Is that the right way to go about
right.
this? Probably not, if people are being
So
hurt.
at the end of season 2, Colin is going to go do a grand tour, right? And so
Hmm.
Penelope has been in love with Colin through all the books until she finally has her own story with him. So I think he's pretty hurt and upset about everything that happened with Marina and etc. And so this guy that looks like he's 12 goes to do his grand tour on the continent, and he comes back at the beginning of season 3, and my God, what a glow up, right? Like
Yeah, for sure. He goes from being like a boy to a man.
100%. And he clearly packed on 25 pounds of muscle because he changed his body entirely. Unless they just weren't revealing that in the first and second season, like he definitely had been working out quite a bit. And he, got better looking, and he got more lines on his face, which I love on a man. His sideburns got bigger. He had just this air of knowledge about him, which happens when you go off and do your grand tour in Europe and sleep your way through the continent. Um, and he also is a writer, which I think is so interesting that they brought two writers together. I love it. Um, but again, Penelope has been on the shelf, as they say, for a couple of years because her come out did, not go well. And but she is still in love with Colin, and I love how beautiful her face is. Penelope's face is so beautiful, and I think so underrated.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that Nicola
Yeah,
Coughlan, I believe is her
yeah,
last name. She's gorgeous,
yeah. She is very voluptuous. Or yeah, or
voluptuous. That's a
fecund
good
is
word.
another word that people might have used back in the day to describe her. And I love that, again, Shonda did this, this body positive person, because while initially she doesn't seem to like her body, right? Because it's not as you say, rail thin as the others. By the time that we get to the middle of season 3, when we have the big sex scene with Colin and Penelope, she's very body positive, and I love that. I love to
Hmm.
see a curvy girl get body positive. I think it's so important because, especially in the United States, like 61% of us are voluptuous now. I just loved her naked scene. I loved, you know, how much Colin loved it. Their chemistry was off the charts. I just love the whole thing about their art. But I mean, like you said the other day, I think we saw like 10 minutes of them the whole entire season.
Yeah. So let's talk about season 3. Actually, first I want to talk about one thing about Lady Whistledown, going back to that. So we know that Penelope makes £10 per issue, but she only publishes I think she publishes once a week during the social season, which is only the summer months, so it's 3 months total. Um, and so, but she's making £10 an issue, and the entire ton is buying this issue. They later in season 3 they talk about an amount of money that needs to be paid off, and it's £10,000. And Penelope's like, I have it, and everyone's like, what? You have? How do you have this? Um, and I did a little digging. £10,000 during that time period, 1815, would be $1.1 million. So Penelope, as Lady Whistledown, is and actually the estimate is 1.1 million to 1.4 million dollars. So Lady Whistledown is like really rolling in it. And poor Penelope is not really able, you see her like she buys some new dresses, she does a little bit of shopping for herself, but because she's hiding the fact that she's Lady Whistledown, she's just got this money in a floorboard, like in a box under the
Right,
floorboards in her
right,
bedroom. Like she can't even like really go out and enjoy it.
right.
But she's really a self-made woman here,
And a writer,
which is
which you and I
just
appreciate so
one.
much.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. I would love it if I could make my living writing gossip columns. I mean, I did for a little while. I wrote for an entertainment website, and I got to go and do like some red carpet coverage for America's Got Talent, so that was cool. But it was not enough to make a living, and I certainly wasn't making $1.1 million on
Yeah,
it.
yeah, that's
So,
pretty amazing. And she saves the day in the end. So, which is, super
yep,
fantastic. So, anyway, so season
yeah.
3, Colin and Penelope, there's a lot of back and forth. Colin is helping her to find a mate. And then, I know that the fella that, Lord Dembley or whatever, is that right? Dembley? Who she
Yeah, Denby
yeah,
something.
who she was going to marry, and then she gets he finds out that she's been, I think, dishonest. What broke them up? I can't remember. Oh, that she still has feelings for Colin. And he's like, well, you're going to be running
Mhm.
my estates. I need someone who can focus on me and my kids and blah, blah, blah. And he runs off, which, by the way, I think he would have been a perfect mate for Cressida. I don't know why they couldn't just have shoved them together and sent them off. And I hated Cressida's character and hated that she was so prevalent in season 3. Hated her through all 3 seasons.
Yeah.
Really hated her in season 3. She sucked.
Well, I think we're supposed to, right? Like that's
Yeah,
good writing
but
by the
she,
Shondaland team because we are supposed to hate her and we do.
but she got too much coverage. I feel like she got more coverage than Penelope did. Um,
Well, so that's like my whole problem with season 3 is the books and the first 2 seasons focus on the primary romantic relationship as like the focal point of all 8 episodes, and you really see the relationship kind of develop and blossom and, get on solid ground, and we get to see a wedding at the end. Season 3, they like poor Penelope and Colin got like no airtime, like you said. I think I read something that said they had a total of like 16 minutes or something like that, of like just them having conversations throughout the entire season. They're only together and alone having, like with just them as the focal point of the scene for 16 minutes. And then we had all of these other storylines that they're starting to weave in. Francesca's storyline, Benedict's storyline, which Benedict has kind of featured throughout seasons 1 and 2, I think more prominently than other characters besides Eloise. We see Eloise and her friendship with Cressida, which is made up from, like, that's not in the books. We see the Mondrich's storyline, like, really exploding. We see Violet has a crush on a boy. We see Lady Danbury fighting with her brother. Like, we have all of these things that don't even happen in the
Right.
books being crammed into this season, while they're also taking things from other books and pulling them into this one. And like, they really kind of ruined the formula of the
Yes.
show. Not ruined it. I shouldn't
Not
say ruined it, but it was like,
they
for me,
distorted it.
yeah, like it was just too big of a
Yeah, they
departure.
distorted it.
Yeah, it didn't ruin it. I'm still gonna watch. Like, I didn't give up on it, but it's not what we were expecting, or it's not what I was
Yeah, no, I'm
expecting.
with you 100%. I thought they had too many story arcs. I couldn't keep up with some of them. I was annoyed by others, and I really wanted to see more of Penelope and Colin. And honestly, I thought that the characters of Francesca and John Sterling were so boring. I just wanted to like die. If she had, given a concert for the Ton, or gone and been on the stage, like I was really disappointed in how their characters were portrayed, because I felt like they were so introverted and to themselves that I didn't even care. I was like, can you just get off the screen?
So it's interesting because, like, okay, so 2 things here, 2 points. One, I read something that said that Francesca's character is supposed to be like autism coded. So, and also that Eloise's character is supposed to be as well, and like 2 opposite ends of the autism spectrum. Well, not opposite ends of the spectrum, but like different places on the spectrum, where Eloise like hyper focuses. She's very extroverted. She's not great with like some social cue situations where she kind of just like will go off on these tangents about things. And then Francesca, for her part, is extremely gifted with music. She's much more introverted. She doesn't get social cues, in that she's not that she doesn't get social cues, but like she's so uncomfortable in society and she would much rather be by herself. And so I think that was like a Reddit thread that I was reading or something. So I don't know if that's like true and intentional, but I thought that was an interesting take on those 2 characters. So there's that about Francesca, is that if she was intentionally coded autistic, I guess that explains that. But the other thing is that in Francesca's book, which shouldn't be brought into the season about Colin and Penelope, but whatever. But like, John doesn't really feature in the book, right? Because, spoiler alert, he dies.
Right.
So like, this Francesca's story is not even about John. Francesca's story is about her mourning John and then falling into a new relationship with somebody who is like obsessed with her in like a not creepy way. So it was like interesting to me that John even featured so much, because he's not really even a character in her story in the books. But like, it's the ghost of him
Right.
in the books,
Right.
you know?
Which brings us to who she does have a relationship with in the books, and who they introduced us to at the end of season 3. That is where I have been reading so much controversy about this casting, and I feel 2 ways about it.
Yeah. Okay, so here's my thought. Yeah, this is a spoiler alert. If you haven't read the books, if you don't know what's about to happen, just like stop. Just goodbye. We love you. Bye. We'll see you next time. Um, if you know what's going on and you don't mind a spoiler, in the books, John dies. His cousin, Michael, becomes the Earl. And Michael has been in love with Francesca since the moment he met her 2 days before John and Francesca got married. He is so in love with her and so overwhelmed by the fact that he is now the Earl that he leaves and goes to India, leaving Francesca for 4 years to be countess and running the estate, the Kilmartin estates, as the Dowager Countess. Eventually, so Michael has to come back to England. His mom has been working on persuading him to come back. There's some things that need to be settled with the estate, so he's got to come back. And he is like dreading it because he loves Francesca so much. He doesn't know how he's supposed to, you know, handle being around her. He feels like he's betraying his dead cousin's memory. And also, Francesca's been doing a really good job of running the estate. So he's kind of like, why? Why do I need to do this? He comes back, and in typical Bridgerton fashion, there's a little bit of like back and forth. There's resisting the romance, whatever. Eventually, they get married, they fall in love, they have two children that Francesca really wanted. She had had a miscarriage. She was like devastated by the fact that she didn't get to have children with John. Her having a miscarriage is like a big part of the storyline of her and Michael's relationship. Like this whole thing that kind of, and then, you know, her and Michael get married again. And she now goes from being the Dowager Countess back to being the Countess. She has children. This is like really important that Michael is a man,
right,
in this storyline for Francesca.
Because there was no artificial insemination back there. So, you know, if she and Michaela get married, they can't have babies. Like, it's not happening. You know, unless one of them has an affair with somebody, you know, down the road or something.
Right.
So,
and Michaela can't inherit. It's male preference primogeniture. Michaela cannot inherit the estate and become the earl. Maybe she could become countess in her own right. I assume some estates at that point may have had
but
a
it would
remainder
have to be
for a
entailed
female
that
heir.
way.
Right, exactly. And even in that case, it doesn't make Francesca the countess again. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like it, and that's not exactly the most important part, but like also that's completely escaping the fact that same-sex marriage at that point was historically
It
not
wasn't
even
a thing. It wasn't
on
a
the
thing.
table.
Like, there was,
Right.
that was all.
Now in Shondaland,
I get it. It's Shondaland. Like, but
yeah, like in Shondaland, is she going to change? Are we going to rewrite history that much that things that would have literally landed someone in jail
are killed
now
or murdered or,
okay,
you know, whatever.
Maybe. And that's fine if they do. Yeah. But like, I feel like it just changed the trajectory. I have no problem with the same sex relationships. Like Benedict's out there having threesomes with like, what's her face? The new girl that they brought in. They brought in another character.
I thought at first it was
like you
Sophie.
go Benedict, like you
I
get
thought
yours.
At first it was Sophie, and I was like, this can't be Sophie. Like, she's much too old to be Sophie. And Sophie wasn't a widow. So
no, that, and like the storyline there is that would be like,
yeah, no,
it wouldn't match
at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I'm with you. And so here's what I read. I read the showrunner, who is you know, someone who is out as queer, wanted to see herself in the series, which I 100,000% applaud. I want that. I think it's wonderful. I think you should have representation of who you are in all of the series. Totally on board with that. But I didn't want it for Michael's character because it completely, as you say, completely changes Francesca's trajectory in the books 100,000%. She will never have children. She will never be a countess again. She will always now be the Dowager Countess. You know, like, it changes everything in the book. So I wish that they had used, like, either created a new character, which they are wont to do and have done thousands of times so far in these series, created a new character who was queer and has a relationship, and then they talk about how secret it was, because I think that's the thing, is that there were 100% there were relationships going on that were you know, bisexual or queer or homosexual or whatever, and that happened all the time, but they were all in secret. Nobody was living out. You know, I mean, maybe in a tradesman class or below, they were. I don't think so, but it would not have been happening in the Ton, and so it would have been much better if they had explored that as a secret relationship, and Michaela was a different character, and they did it that way. In my opinion, that's just my opinion.
Well, I mean, I think if the showrunner wants to see herself represented, and they're, you know, it's Shondaland, right? So it doesn't have to be exactly historically accurate. If she wanted to create a relationship where they were out and about and proud, and like, that's fine. Like, go for it, because it's, you know, it's Shondaland. We can bend the laws of history a bit there. My problem is just, if you're gonna make a show based on character, you can change, like, you know, make tweaks to make the character your own. Obviously, like, the dialogue changes, the character interactions are different, things are the way you imagine them to have been when you were reading it. But to change the entire trajectory of a character's story, where, like, her ending can't be the same, that's where I'm like, why would you do that?
I think
Like,
it goes against brand,
why?
the Bridgerton brand, honestly. You know, you haven't seen that with any other characters
Yeah,
that were in the books.
right. And also just the way that they did the whole season, in the way that Colin and Penelope were not the focal point the way they should have been, or the way that we had seen with Daphne and Simon and Anthony and Kate. They broke the brand kind of by departing from that, like, the romantic storyline is the main focus of this. Like, and in no other season have we ever seen so many, you know, the Mondriches were a side story that we had seen that was differently developed from the books. I don't think they were in the books at all. But they were consistent through season 1 and season 2. And I could see the Mondriches have been getting their own season at some point, you know, or like a spin-off series. I think that would have been great, but they like shoehorned them into this Colin and Penelope season, along with Violet getting, you know, having a crush, and Lady Danbury getting into a fight with her brother, and like all of these other things, rather than having one central storyline and these like tiny peripheral things. We had like 6 main storylines.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree.
And it's like, that's not how this show formula goes.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% with you. I want to circle back because I'm not saying that I don't want a queer relationship on Bridgerton. I think it's totally great. What I'm saying is I wish they'd explore it a little more realistically. So, you know, starting it in secret and having it be characters that we don't know and love from the books. Or if there's a character from the books that doesn't have a relationship or is already in a relationship but is unhappy, then that would be a great arc too. But I would love to see it from the point of,
yeah, like they could have given it to Cressida.
Right?
Cressida has like a shitty go of it in the books. Like, why not give her a happy ending on the show?
Right.
And give her this like wonderful relationship rather than like the crappy storyline she has in the books. And the crappy storyline she's getting in the show where we hate her.
Kill off her mom and dad. So that's what I would do immediately because I hated her father. So kill off her mom and dad, have everything be left to her because clearly there's no male heir. So maybe it was her mother's estate and it goes to her because that happens a lot in real Regency times. So then she gets all that. Then she meets someone. See, I thought all along they were going to change Eloise's story from Sir Philip Crane to make her bi or queer, which I would have loved that because I feel like Eloise gives off that vibe anyway. But they didn't. But I thought throughout the whole of season 3 that Eloise and Cressida were going to start a relationship, which I would have loved that. They would have been perfect. But that didn't happen. And it would also change Eloise's story. I get that 100%. But anyway, so I'm delighted for them to have a whole story arc that revolves around that. I just was sad that it was Michael Sterling.
Yeah, I think if they had done it with any other, maybe not any other character, but like any other side character that was already existing, or brought in new characters to explore that relationship, fine. But don't do it to a character that like has a story arc that kind of depends on the relationship. Like, Francesca can't have the kids she desperately wants with a woman. It just is not possible at this time period.
Well, yeah. And they set it up in the season 3 where she tells John Sterling at some point that she is not that interested in children. Like, she doesn't want a big family. Yeah.
Right. Right. Which is so funny because in the books, she's like, she has a miscarriage. She's devastated. Like, she was so upset she never had children with John. Like her wanting children was such a huge part of her storyline in the book. And then in the show, they're like, nah, she doesn't even want them. It's like, wait, what? Yes, she does. Which should have been a big key right there, that they were going to change her storyline a lot.
Yeah,
because
it's true. So again, you and I have talked about other characters other than Penelope and Colin this entire time talking about season 3. So
that's because they didn't get a lot of airtime in season 3.
So let's talk about Lady...
Season 3 was not about
Lady
them.
Whistledown finally being outed, but initially, so the Queen puts up a £5,000 reward to anyone that can, out Lady Whistledown. Now, as you've calculated, that would have been about $500,000, which would have been plenty to live on for the rest of your life. Um, so she
Mm-hmm.
puts up that reward, and Cressida comes forward and says that she's Lady Whistledown, and then she's dumb as a box of rocks, so she has to go, write some stuff, and it's
Dumb as a
yeah,
box of
she
rocks.
truly is, and she writes some stuff, and it's terrible, and then she's really cruel and vindictive. So we, end up finding out it's not her, and then towards, at the very end of the season, Penelope reveals herself, and because Lady Danbury's had that conversation with the Queen to say like, hey, you know what, you like a rival, and gossip isn't bad. I think that the Queen takes that to heart. So when Penelope reveals herself, she's like, you know what? We all love a little gossip. And like, it's not a big deal, which is great. I
Mm-hmm.
love that they did that. And then Colin was able to forgive Penelope, and everyone ended beautifully. But they wrapped up season 3 with such a bow that it felt like a series wrap to me. Like, 100% felt like a series wrap.
Well, I think that they did that in seasons 1 and 2 as well, because the main relationship story is told, and kind of just like in the books, it's like, okay, that's like a quasi standalone story, so I guess it could be done here. Um, so I guess that's part of the Bridgerton formula, is making each season feel like it can stand on its own. Um, but I think, Cressida's story, they kind of left pretty open. Um, Obviously Francesca and Michaela with like the gasp at the end, like I feel like that was like okay, there's more here. I thought Penelope and Colin and the Featherington girls having kids seemed like, okay, we're closing the chapter on Penelope and Colin completely, because we don't see past couples in future seasons that much, like we saw Anthony and Kate a little bit. So I think that was like we're closing their chapter, even though I feel like they didn't get a good chapter. But I think there was enough kind of suspense in other storylines to be like, okay, there's more
Right. And
coming.
Penelope had the boy, which
Because,
obviously was fitting.
mm-hmm. Yep. So now he's Lord Featherington. He's going to inherit the Featherington estate. That's going to gets her mother out of the crunch that she was in. Penelope and her figured out how to say like, oh, well, now that everyone was on Lady Whistledown, we'll say that the money that you found came from me, not from the shady cousin or whoever that guy was from
Yeah.
season 2. But yeah, they like tied up some stuff really
And
tightly.
then,
And it was like, oh, okay, I guess we will
and
see you
Lady
guys again.
Whistledown signed off.
Yeah, but she'll be back. Although, is she in the books
I don't think
after
so.
book 4? Yeah, I think, and because yeah, she Penelope retires in the books, but Colin and Penn's book is book 4, not
Right.
book 3.
Right.
So maybe I think we'll still see Lady Whistledown in the show, even though we don't
Yeah.
see her
That's
in the books.
season that's book 4 is when that happens, like the Cressida
Yeah.
stuff and
Hmm.
Lady Whistledown, all that business. So anywho, so all that to say, it'll be interesting to see what they do with season 4. Like, whose arc are they going to explore? Right. So I don't think it's going to be, if it's all on Francesca, I'm not watching, because not because of the storyline, but because she herself, Francesca, I find very boring. I think she's so boring.
I mean, I'll be watching because I'm so curious to see.
Okay, fair enough. Yes, I'll
I'm
watch.
so curious to see what they do with that storyline, because it's like, yeah. And also, I think Benedict's season is next.
Which would be fabulous. And so I'll be
Yeah, I loved
so,
his book.
yeah, me too. Loved it so much. Love Sophie. Love Sophie. So I'll be so interested to see how they cast Sophie. What she looks like. Like, I love that Shonda does different castings of characters. Like, I love that. Simon's character was black, and I love that Kate's character was Indian. So I'll be very interested to see what they do with Sophie's character. Super excited about that. So I hope
So
that Benedict is next.
they are casting for a recurring character in season 4 named Emily. and she is scripted as East Asian. So people are speculating that Emily could be Sophie, and either they're doing a name change or just for casting calls they made it Emily, so it's not like a spoiler, but people are predicting that this Emily character, who is described as plucky, endlessly resourceful, and having trouble trusting others, which is our Sophie,
Yeah.
that could be Sophie.
I thought they may go that Asian route, which is great. I love that. So I'm delighted.
Yeah.
I'm delighted to see that, and I do hope they explore that. Interestingly, I think like, will he still be bisexual when he's with Sophie? Will they have an entanglement? Like, how's all that going to play out? That'll be interesting to see how they handle that. Because I think Benedict says it in the show. He says like, I don't care, male, female, whatever, like it doesn't matter to me.
Right.
I think he says that in the show when he is talking to the widow, because she's afraid that he's like all freaked out because of the male female thing, and he's like, no, that's not the deal, that's not why I'm freaked out. But anyway, so I hope it's his story next, and I hope Hyacinth gets a story because I love her character. She's so cute.
Yeah, it says that they're going to be there's going to be 8 seasons, which you would presume means all 8 books will be represented. But who knows? Because again, I want to see the Mondriches get a season. Like, I really think it would be fun if we like explored them more, especially now that they're part of like, although I don't know, maybe they kind of made it so that they can't really do that because they've told too much of the story already. I don't know. They would have been cool to be a spin-off, like a Queen Charlotte-esque spin-off.
Yeah, I would love to have I would love a prequel, like a Lady Danbury prequel, because I love Lady Danbury so much.
That would be fun.
Yeah, so that would be amazing. I would like Violet to be remarried, and I think hopefully marry Lady Danbury's brother because I love him. So I hope she gets another happy ending. Since she has been just raising children now forever. So there are a lot of stories I'd like to see. The little one, Gregory, is it Gregory?
Mm-hmm.
Gregory. Yeah, I love his book.
Yeah.
So
his book is so good.
Yes,
I really like his.
So good. So I hope he gets a book. I just don't know how long people are going to hang on. Sometimes you get to like season 4 or 5 of the show and you're like, meh, I'm good. And you just stop watching, right? So it'll be interesting to see how they handle it. But all in all, like I liked season 3. I didn't love it the way I loved season 1 and 2. And again, I think it's because there were so many storylines. It was not fulfilling for all of them.
Yeah, I agree. I think they messed with their formula a little bit too much, and it was almost a little bit like, like every time they would get into like Cressida's storyline, I would kind of tune out a little bit because I was like, I just don't care. Like, I don't care about Cressida. And like every time they would talk, like Lady Danbury and her fight with her brother, like I don't care right now. Like we can talk about that some other time, I guess, but like that's not what I'm here for. I'm here for Colin and Penn. Like, where's that story?
Well, and
they just didn't give it to me.
So, and I thought that Lady Danbury's holding a grudge with her brother was so inconsistent with who she was as a character that I didn't agree with that at all, because what happened to her was she was a child, and just how mature and wise and giving and loving she is as an adult doesn't make sense to me that she'd have been holding a grudge for 70 years. Like that didn't ring true for me. So I agree with you 100%. Well, I think that pretty much wraps us up for the Bridgerton family and the first 3 seasons. We'd be interested to know your comments and what you think about changing Michael's story to Michaela, and if they should have chosen another character, and then who you think that they'll be casting for next. So you guys have a great rest of your week. We're so happy to be back in the studio and saying hey to you guys. Take care.